Hello, I'm Dr. Marilyn Mobley. Today is Monday, November 24, 2025, and we are here continuing our conversations about the Blacks in Management organization. We are very excited to be part of the Blacks in Management Archive project, and with me today is David Whitehead, one of the early members of Blacks in Management that we affectionately call BIM. And so sometimes in this conversation we'll say BIM, sometimes we'll say Blacks in Management. But we're happy for this opportunity to leave a record of the kind of organization BIM was. So, David, tell us a little bit about who you are, what your history here in Cleveland is, before you tell me about your BIM connection.
Well, thanks for having me, Marilyn. I am a born and bred Clevelander. My wife, Ravine, and I both. And went through Catholic schools primarily in Cleveland. But like most folks, started in the Glenville area and later on moved to the southeast side of town. And our adult years have been in the southeastern suburbs of Cleveland. Met a lot of folks in my time. I'm a lawyer by profession, but spent the latter part of my career as what you would call a business executive, I would say, with Cleveland Electric Illuminating Company and First Energy.
Very good. Business executive, that's the part that's important, because part of what I learned about BIM when I joined it in, I think it was 2010 or so, when Felton and I came to Cleveland as new executives, that's what we heard about BIM first, that it was an organization for Cleveland executives. And I was a little bit different because earlier on, the executives were not in higher ed, which is where I was. Many of them were in the corporate world, as you were. So can you share more about when and how did you learn about BIM?
I learned about BIM. I was not a founding member. I learned about BIM maybe through my fraternity brothers, the more I think about it, because some names that you'll hear are Clay Wisham and Hilton Smith.
And you might want to say what your fraternity is
I
for.
will get there.
Okay, excuse me.
Jerome McLean, and I could go on and on, but they're all brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha.
Got it.
And so from fraternity meetings and fraternity socials and so forth, I knew those guys, and they would talk about the organization. And then I did meet some other corporate types along the way who may not have been Alphas.
Okay, okay. So that period, can you say about when that was?
That brings me to a little bit of the history, if you're okay with that.
Sure, sure.
So BIM in the initial stage was usually the top African American executive in corporations. So we didn't even have not only education but no philanthropic types. They were all corporate types.
Okay,
And it started, I think, in the late 1960s after the Huff riots in Cleveland.
that's what I heard, yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
where some of the business community finally realized we better connect a little closer to our community, and we don't have any of those kind of folks in higher levels of our organization. So CEI, the gas company, the telephone company at the time, and the banks, over a period of years, late 60s, all hired some African American executives.
Very good.
Back in those days, they were males, of course. But that's when BIM got started. Because I knew some of these guys as a fraternity brother, my first formal involvement with BIM was as a guest at some of the activities that they had.
Okay, okay, all right. What role did BIM play for you personally as an executive in Cleveland?
Well, for me personally and for a lot of others, the camaraderie that we had was important. So we met every month. And what used to amaze me is that you'd have people from Key Bank, National City, well, probably Society Bank back then, National City and whatever it is, who were basically competitors. But when we got in that room and started talking, they shared information that would benefit all of us and the communities that we served. They still protected their financial institutions.
Of course.
But it was a different type of a relationship that you wouldn't understand maybe if you weren't there at the time.
Nice. I like your use of the word camaraderie because even though they were competitors, there was a basis for that camaraderie because they were not in great numbers in their organization. Sometimes they were the first and the only, is my understanding.
Absolutely. And the benefit, particularly back then, was support system for each other because we were all going through things in our various institutions. And in my case, Clay Wisham was at the electric company before I was. That's one of the connections I should mention. The original rule was the top African American in the company, either that or the one who had the most direct access to the CEO.
Got it.
That was a
Got it.
requirement. And only one per company.
Oh,
So that's one reason why I was not one of the founders.
I see.
But
Thank you for that clarification because I always wondered about that, whether there could be more than one from a company. But I had heard that it had to be the top one.
yeah, so
Okay.
I can't remember the exact year.
That's
Probably late, maybe in the 80s even. Our company went through a merger, and we merged with the Toledo Electric Company
Okay.
to create a company called Centurior Energy at the time. So Clay Wisham, Lorna Wisham's father, who some of the people would know,
Yes.
being a sharp guy and knowing that I had participated as a guest with BIM up to that point, called me and said, well, technically we're two companies now, so I want to invite you to become a member
Okay.
of BIM because you work for a different entity than I do. And that's how I joined.
That's good. That's good to know. So what role did BIM play in the lives of other Black executives? In a way, you've answered it, but maybe there were some distinctions you saw.
Well, aside from those meetings, we obviously developed close personal relationships. I mentioned my fraternity brothers, but as we went through the BIM process, even closer business relationships. So I don't know, I'll share a story. It goes back quite a ways. A guy by the name of Jerome McLean was the BIM member at then Society Bank, I think now Key Bank. And he and I were very close friends. Our wives were friends, all of that. And we went to lunch one day, and as we were finishing up lunch, we was walking back, he started talking about what was going on with him, which is that's why we had lunch, and the problem he was going through at his bank about where they were going to move his department because they were going into a new building and all that kind of stuff. And he was not happy about it. So I don't know if they're moving him to the basement or whatever it was, but so I started laughing. And he looked at me like, this is not funny, Dave. Why are you laughing? So I said, Jerome, I'm going through the same thing right now. They're trying to move me my department somewhere I don't want to be. And then we started talking about how can we work through this to have the kind of outcome that we wanted. So that's even outside the meeting structure, that was some of the benefits of BIM once you develop those relationships.
That's important. One of the things that I heard about BIM all along was that the camaraderie, meeting people from other companies, help you navigate in your own company and also help you navigate sometimes in social circles outside of your company. So that's important. What role or office did you have? Were you ever an officer? I want to say
tried to
publicly.
remember.
Well, I want to say publicly, I'm grateful when I became president that you served on the advisory committee that we had, and so you were helpful to me. But what I realized I didn't know is, did you ever serve as an officer of BIM?
If I did, I don't remember.
It's okay.
I purposely, in almost any organization I was involved in, did not want to handle money. So I know I was never treasurer. And I didn't really want to be president because we had enough high-profile people in the organization. Maybe somewhere along the line I might have served as secretary or something like that, but
Okay.
never president or treasurer, I can tell you that.
Okay. What are some of the unique accomplishments of BIM that you could share? I hear some of them embedded in what you've said already, but if you had to think back on BIM, what it accomplished, what are some things that come to mind?
Well, let me tell you another story. I think enough years have passed now
Okay.
that I could tell this story because we were all, in significant positions in our companies, all going through the same frustrations. And we were at a point in time, this probably might have even been in the 90s, where we thought moving very fast. We all had good positions in our companies, but we weren't moving up
Stagnated.
as fast. As the way we wanted to. So in the meetings, we have to decide, is there anything we can do about it? And there's a fine line about how far you can push the company and so forth and so on. So we probably had some women by then, but I'll say we hitched up our britches at one point in time and decided we need to have a meeting with our CEO, a group meeting with our CEOs. So we decided to do that, and each talked to our CEOs and invited them to a group meeting. Now we know what they do. They did. They all got the invitation. They called each other. Are you going to this
Are you
meeting? Are
going?
you going to this meeting? So they agreed to come. So we had a good meeting. I don't know. We probably had a dozen CEOs there, and probably more, maybe more than that in terms of members. And we had a good give and take about the issues that we were concerned about. And being CEO types, they didn't make any kind of commitments. They listened and so forth.
Sure.
I made a personal note of my own. Within the following year, 3 or 4 of us got promoted.
Ah, I like that. I like that. I recall Bracy mentioned that to me, and I believe it may have been in my interview with him, but that one of the features of BIM was meeting with CEOs,
Yeah.
not just BIM members meeting among themselves. So, okay. So that was one of the accomplishments. The other one that I recall when I was part of BIM was that we met occasionally with the mayor
Yes.
and other people in senior leadership in the city.
Yes. We either
Stakeholders, there was other language we had for stakeholders, or I can't remember the other
can't
term.
either. But we either met with them or we invited them to our meetings,
Okay,
which were closed. And, so yes, we had mayors and other high-ranking officials. And it was kind of, we also had a saying, and it was more than a saying, that what happens at BIM stays at BIM.
tell me why that was important.
It was important because
I think I know,
to
but-
protect each other in our
That's
various
right.
entities. That we also had to be able to trust each other. So if somehow it was deemed important enough to divulge some semi-confidential information about what's going on in one company or the other, we had to know that it wasn't going to leave the room and be back all over the street 2 days
That's right.
later. You know,
That's right. Okay. So the meetings with CEOs, inviting stakeholders to come to BIM meetings. Any other
one
features
comes to
of-
mind as we talk, yes, because I think they started it before I became a member. But we had a close relationship with historically black colleges, HBCUs.
Oh, my.
And we had a professorial type of program where we would bring in a professor, maybe half a dozen of them, from HBCUs during the summer. I think they got paid some kind of stipend, so we got talked our companies into doing that. And we did that for several years, and it was very beneficial for both sides.
That's good. I wish I had known about that. That sounds really good. I was provost at HBCU, and I can see where that would be beneficial, especially in a place like Cleveland, where the closest HBCU, I guess, is Central State.
Yes, yes.
So,
Well,
okay.
Wilberforce. I don't
Oh,
know,
Wilberforce,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
But you may have Hilton Smith as one of your guests, so he may,
Yes,
he
he's
may-
going to do an interview.
Yeah, he may recall more about that than I do, but I remember that program very well.
So one of the features of BIM that I haven't heard you mention, I'm wondering how you see it, but there used to be a reception to welcome new CEOs to town, which is how I learned about BIM, which is how our CEO of the library at Felton learned about BIM, I think, because we were introduced as new executives at the same event. And I remember thinking, oh, there's something called Blacks in Management. And we tried to continue that until maybe last year, maybe 2024 or 2023.
I think COVID maybe gotten in the
COVID
middle of it
had something to
somewhere.
do with it, yeah.
That was so BIM kind of I'll call it matured, but transitioned into slightly different organization. So maybe as we got into the late 90s, early 2000s,
Okay.
I think we actually started meeting quarterly at some point instead of monthly.
Oh.
But also, our presence was unique, and we didn't want to compete with some other organizations that had developed by that point in time.
Okay.
And we said, well, this is a role we should play because we still have usually the most high-ranking or influential African Americans in the various corporations. So Cleveland is always a welcoming type city, as you learned.
Right.
So we said we should welcome these people who are coming here so that we can wrap our arms around them early on and open doors for them and help them to be successful in whatever entities they were coming for. And then it was beyond corporations,
Right.
the philanthropic institutions and educational
And higher ed,
institutions,
yeah.
medical institutions, everything.
What was the response to BIM and its initiatives from the corporate community and the greater Cleveland community? That's almost two questions, but the corporate community had one response, which I think you've hinted at a little bit. How did the greater Cleveland community see BIM?
Sometimes the greater Cleveland community didn't know much about us.
Okay.
We weren't a lot of high-profile people. We all had our jobs to do whatever we didn't. But we didn't have one big social event every year. That's open
Right.
to
So
the
that was
public.
by design to a certain extent.
Yes. And particularly when other groups started coming out and having big social events, we didn't want to step on their toes. So,
Right.
well, just as an example, when BPA started having their annual gala, one way we chose to support them is we would rent a suite at the hotel or wherever they were asking for after party.
Oh, nice.
So, but Cleveland, we were kind of a well-kept secret in Cleveland in many places. I mean, some people knew about us, but no, it wasn't widely known. As far as the business community is concerned, mixed. Certain CEOs who were more open-minded and understood the importance of how we could help make their companies' bottom lines better. They were open to us and listened to us. Others just didn't understand why there was a need for anything like BPA, because of course everything, not BIM,
BIM,
because everything is okay already.
Right,
So
right.
it was always a mixed reaction, and we were prepared for that.
Yeah. I like that you raised an important term, especially because now with all the language we're hearing around DEI, I like that you said your meetings helped CEOs understand how your presence could help the bottom line. That sounds like it would be instrumental in helping them be convinced.
Well,
I don't know if it was or not.
I don't know if anybody talked about it in the other interviews, but has the name Bertram Gardner come up yet?
I don't think anyone mentioned his name.
Bertram, so after those riots in the 60s, and decision was made we need to bring some folks into our corporations, Bertram Gardner ran the Glenville YMCA.
Ah,
No corporate background at all, but highly regarded in Cleveland. What bank was that? Cleveland Trust Bank.
Cleveland
back at
Trust,
that time,
okay, okay.
hired him as a vice president of community, whatever names they used to give us back in those days. And he was the first African American that I'm aware of in a significant corporate job. Then later on, as I said, the banks and the telephone company and utility companies hired people. So that was an important step in the process, and helping him be successful. And then once the other entities hired people, they needed a way to survive and support each other because they were all going through a variety of problems. With the DEI initiatives being what they are now, times are different.
Sure.
And you have to be flexible.
That's right.
And learn how to deal with the world that we live in now.
Yes.
And that isolationism that unique individuals in these companies can feel is another reason why the camaraderie that we developed back then is important. Now you have social media and so forth, so folks have other ways of communicating, but it's still important not to allow yourself to be isolated.
Yeah, yeah.
And because it can be there can be some tough times and some dark days.
That's true. That's true. I appreciate juxtaposing the camaraderie with the isolation, which can happen. And the isolation can sometimes happen because if you're one of only a few, or you're the only, you know things that you can't share with anyone else. So it's isolation. It's also loneliness because you are at the top. It's a cliche to say it's lonely at the top, but it's true.
We paid attention to what was going on around us beyond Cleveland also. And there were some sad days because there were one specific situation I remember, but maybe more than one, where top executives at corporations outside of Cleveland, there were suicides, things of that nature. It was a
Yes.
tough time.
Yeah. So, what would you want current Black executives to know about Blacks in management? And you've covered a lot, so I guess I'm asking, is there anything?
Yeah, I want
Because
to.
it's, in a way, that's why we're doing this. I think at some point, we're going to share this with others.
Oh yeah, I want to mention something. Again, it's historical, and it carries it to the next level. We talked about the business side and all that kind of stuff. We got families involved. Okay,
I heard,
So
I heard.
retreats. We had an annual retreat, which was very important, and the early ones I remember, I was a guest at a retreat in Toronto.
Oh,
And then I think they went to Toronto a couple times. So a few years later, when we went back to Toronto, I was a member. But what was that play that was so hot? That was in Toronto. Oh,
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I can't think of the
Okay,
name of it now. But
uh-huh.
we went up there and had our retreat there and all went to the play.
Mm-hmm.
Then a couple years later, we're doing well. See, the companies paid our dues, which that's where diversity and all that comes in now, because that probably wouldn't happen now.
Okay.
But the companies paid our dues, and so we had a nice piece of change at one point in time. So we decided we can do better than Toronto. We're going to the Bahamas for our retreat.
Wow.
So we did that. Some airline was running a charter from Cleveland to the Bahamas that year, and we basically we didn't intend to charter the flight, but we had so many people on it. It was our chartered flight.
Nice.
Mostly BIM members. We invited guests and families, and we had if you can imagine, a charter full of us going to the Bahamas. It was fun. We did that a couple of years. I know the last time we did it, we even treated our guests by buying out a restaurant like on a Saturday night and just having all of us, members, families, and guests all there. So we reached beyond the membership at times.
That's good.
To reach out to the community, as you
That's good.
mentioned before.
I like that too because it does say that sometimes you're not only exclusive in your corporation, but sometimes you're exclusive in your neighborhood, and it's important to have a family attitude as everybody's adjusting sometimes to new social situations. Yeah. You've shared a lot, but what is your fondest memory of BIM? That Toronto trip sounds like
The
it may
retreat.
have been hard. The retreats.
Yeah, that's on the top.
Yeah.
And what we also did anecdotally in some of those retreats to get the families involved was sometimes we'd have wives do presentations.
Nice.
So I remember my wife, and I mentioned Jerome McLean earlier, his wife, they were both educators. So at one of the retreats, we had them do a presentation on whatever, something was in vogue educational at
Okay.
that point in time. So those are all kind of like fond memories. And we used to have an annual Christmas party also,
Okay.
where we would you're supposed to invite prospective members.
Oh,
But the Christmas party would be nice because, again, that would give us a chance to reach out to the community more. And as you mentioned, the new executives or new leaders in town thing that we sponsored.
Reception, yeah.
Yeah, that was, as we evolved and weren't as prominent in some ways as we were before, that was a way for us to show that we still are here and we can still help you.
Yeah, yeah. I like that because I think some of the history you're sharing I didn't know as much about, but that seemed like an important function for BIM to have. As we would learn about new executives, we would want to, in a sense, present them, welcome them and also present them.
Just to cover a lot of years in a couple of sentences. Clay Wisham at CEI, not only did he invite me to join Blacks in Management once we divided the company, but he also was the person that recruited me to work at the corporate world at CEI years before that. And as you might have heard at an event not too long ago,
Yes.
20 years later, I was able to hire his daughter at the company. So it went back. And another example I can think of is we all did philanthropic work. Okay. So we're all always in the community, in Urban League and NAACP, whatever it is, serving on those boards and so forth. Neighborhood Centers Association was a group that was active back then. There was the settlement houses and community centers in Cleveland. I was active in that board, and a young man who was representing one of the neighborhood centers, I can't even remember which one, was somebody named Randell McShepard.
Randell McShepard,
That's how we met.
did one of the he did one of these interviews.
That's how
So,
we met.
so I that's important too, that people make connections and then begin to recommend people. You know, we talk in the business and corporate and higher ed world about mentoring and coaching, but the next level is sponsoring. You know, speaking up for people, even when they're not around, to say this person would be good. And so I've always heard that Ben was doing that.
I knew Randy long before he was a corporate executive, and
Okay.
he was working in philanthropic organizations himself. He always had that side and still does. And so I was an officer of neighborhood centers at the time, and he was on the board because he was representing his neighborhood center. I forget which one it was, and that's how we met. And it was just a natural kind of thing. And we
Very
found out-
nice.
Found out we belonged to the same fraternity again, so we go from there.
Okay, okay. If there were one aspect of BIM that you would have changed, what would it have been?
Nothing dramatic. I mean, like society as a whole, we probably could have moved ahead a little sooner in broadening our horizons.
Okay.
Because when we started to bring in people from beyond the corporate community, that allowed us to broaden our membership. And that's when we got more women involved, and we had some outstanding women leaders and women who became president of the organization. So, but society, that was tough for society as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm a history major and a political science minor, and some people don't comprehend how late in our American history it was when women got the right to vote.
Thank you.
So,
That is so true. And when I became a member, I began hearing about that. I met Charlize Pratt, I believe, when she was president. And there was always that conversation about initially women were not even part of the organization, let alone in leadership roles. So that is a change that happened over
change
time.
for the better.
Yeah. So is there any other memory that you want to share before we conclude?
No, none that comes to mind, but I'm very proud as we have transitioned, particularly over the last 8, 10, 15 years, of the role you have played. Because I
Thank you.
know I twisted your arm a little bit.
You did? Okay, for the record. David Whitehead twisted my arm.
We needed your leadership skills.
Yeah,
So,
but I appreciate, I enjoyed my leadership time. But I appreciate you use the word transition because we also recognize that there are lots of other organizations in town and people make choices about how and where they want to affiliate and how they want to spend their time. And one of the changes that I've noticed just in society, period, not just BIM, is that there are more people who come to Cleveland who've already been in senior leadership roles. So the way BIM was operating early on wasn't needed in the same way.
Exactly.
But I think you raised two terms that I just come back to, camaraderie and isolation. Those things can still happen. You know, people still can feel isolated and lonely and need the kind of camaraderie that BIM had. So I think you're a little more senior than I am, but as two retirees, I think as we navigate the city, and I'm more in Akron now than Cleveland, but I think we're always paying attention to those concerns and how we can advise other people. And I've just appreciated you as an advisor. You have this distinguished air that says you know things. And so people want to ask you questions. So I know, you are enjoying retirement life, but I appreciate how you are still serving, still assisting people in an advisory capacity, and we're still able to benefit from your wisdom and your knowledge and your history here in Cleveland. So I just want to thank you for taking this time today.
Well, thank you for those kind words. And there were people who looked after me at certain points in time, and this is my time to maybe help some other folk. I don't mentor in the traditional sense where
Sure.
we meet once a month and
Oh, no.
but I'm here, and I'm willing to share if I can help someone. And somebody will help my children.
This is the spirit. The National Council of Negro Women had us saying, lifting as we climb. And I think, I'm a minister too. And so for me, we've been blessed to be a blessing. So however we can assist those coming behind us, that's something that BIM taught us that we want to continue to do. So, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to participate in this project.
Okay, glad you're part of it. Thank you.